This video is brought to you by Big Bad Toy Store. Make your purchases through my personal link in the description to help out the channel. Furthermore, if you want to support me more directly, you can check out my YouTube channel membership for fun emojis and sneak peeks, or my Patreon. Links in the description. Okay guys, so Halloween is upon us, and I thought it would be fun to make a little collection video of just my horror stuff. And seeing as there is a surprisingly big amount of choice when it comes to horror figures, and the figure collecting community is pretty big on horror, it seems, I thought I would make a little video detailing why I have these particular ones, because I usually don't tend to buy duplicates of the same character if possible. Pennywise here in the background, as you can see, is an exception because this is obviously the Tim Curry one, and this is obviously the Bill Skarsgård one from the remake. But yeah, I'm gonna start talking about these horror icons here, and I thought we would start with the odd one out, which is Ash, because he is indeed a horror icon, but he's also, unlike all the other ones, he's not actually like a villain or a murderer. Well, he does kill things, but it's not really, you know, people. So yeah, this is my Ash vs. Evil Dead custom Ash figure. This is actually the Asylum Ash face with the hair from the original release grafted on, and then everything is repainted, and yeah, he just turned out stellar, I think. I really wanted an Ash head with a smirk just to capture that Bruce Campbell charm, and I couldn't really be happier with him, so yeah, that's Ash. So I think we can sort of start with the oldest icon, which is Leatherface. So this is the NECA Ultimate Leatherface figure, and he is absolutely amazing looking. There have been a few other Leatherface figures, like there was one in McFarlane's Movie Maniacs line, but he was just like a somewhat articulated statue. He couldn't really do much, and the detail just wasn't really there in comparison to this. And then, of course, there are the remake Leatherfaces, but I don't particularly like the remake of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and I especially don't like the newest ones. I saw the most recent one, and I don't think I've ever been that offended by a horror movie before. Like, it was just atrociously bad. So definitely don't watch it. But yeah, this is NECA's Ultimate Leatherface, and he looks pretty much spot on, and there isn't anything I would really ask for. This is a soft goods apron with some really nice blood paintwork on it, and the chainsaw, beautiful. Got some really nice blood paintwork on here too. I do understand if people would prefer the remake from, I think, 2003, because it's a little bit more action-oriented, and they sort of made Leatherface look, like, shallowly cooler. But the thing about Leatherface is that he's not really supposed to be cool or badass. He's just, like, this sort of mentally challenged dude who wants to make his family happy. Like, my favorite scene in all of the first movie is when he's chasing a girl throughout the house, and then she, like, jukes him, and he can't find her. So he sits down on a bench, and you can just see like the inner workings of his head as he panics, and he doesn't really know what to do because he doesn't want to disappoint his family. So yeah, this is how Leatherface should be, and that's why I chose this original version of the character for my horror movie shelf. Skipping ahead 4 years, this is Halloween's Michael Myers figure, and this figure isn't actually from the first movie, it's from the soft reboot / late sequel from 2018. So Halloween is a movie franchise that has a very confusing timeline. Like, it has, I think it's got like 3 different branches of timelines, and it's just a big mess. But the 2018 movie is a straight continuation from the first movie, so they got rid of a lot of things like Michael being Loris's brother, and the movie is actually really, really good. The second one after that isn't particularly great, and the most recent one, Halloween Ends, is just flat out terrible. But yeah, this is from the 2018 movie, and this version of Michael is very true to the original take from 1978, and I actually do really like how the mask looks in the 2018 movie, how it looks all like rotten and stuff without going overboard like in the Rob Zombie one, which is... The Rob Zombie one isn't, like... It's pretty bad, but it's also somewhat fun to watch at, like, some parts of it are like decent fun to watch. I never saw the sequel of it, but if you want a true sequel to the first movie, then it's definitely the 2018 movie. I do have a custom head I made to mimic the 1978 look. It's just the alternate head for this figure that I resculpted. I basically filled in all the cracks and I repainted everything. So if you're curious about what that looks like, then you have that here. So but for my shelf display, as much as I like having a clean mask, I do prefer like this 2018 look. If you're curious about the Halloween movies, I can sort of recommend, of course, the first one. The second one isn't bad, so I would I would say watch the second one. Then pretty much after that, everything is trash. Halloween H2O is decent, and Halloween Resurrection is so bad that it kind of goes around to being somewhat funny to watch, because it's basically the reality show Big Brother in Michael Myers' old house, and Michael just happens to be there. It's a really stupid, silly concept, and it's actually somewhat fun. But the only movies I can legit recommend is the first one and the 2018 one. After that, they all kind of range from meh to incredibly bad. So, but yeah, this is my Michael. So next up in line is Jason, who, Jason isn't actually the killer in the first movie, but I'm still going sort of in time as the franchises came out, because in the first movie it's actually his mother who's the killer. Jason just shows up at the very end as a cameo, as a little boy, and you don't really know if it's a vision or not, or like if it actually happens. So yeah, this is the Jason I went with. I waited several years for this specific version of Jason because NECA was holding out on us, and then there was that rights dispute over who actually owns the franchise, so we couldn't get any merchandise for it. But this is Jason from Part 7, The New Blood, and this is the debut of fan favorite actor Kane Hodder, who plays Jason, and he just brought this really badass physicality to the character. Like, he's just really wide and thick, and his unmasked head is by far the coolest version we get to see of Jason unmasked. And just everything with the chain around his neck and the makeup. It's just by far the best Jason look to me. Kane is actually the only actor who played Jason more than once. He played him through Part 7 till 10, and then he also did Jason's mocap for the video game, which I thought was really cool. So yeah, NECA Ultimate Jason Part 7 is the way to go when it comes to Jason for me. There is like a weird little issue with him though, like his hockey mask. You can see that, I don't know if you can see it now because I kind of like fixed it, but these holes here really were not like centered at all, so I had to like carve out all the holes and move them a little bit to the left here, and then I had to resculpt like the right side of every hole just to kind of like shift everything to the left a little bit. I don't know why that happened, but it was enough of an issue to bother me. You can still probably see that it's not completely centered, but I promise you, it's way closer to than how it originally looked. If you have this figure, I might just have ruined this figure for you if you care about stuff like that, but you could at least like take a look at it and see if this applies to you. Jason Part 7, absolute beast, love him. And he was indeed worth the years of waiting. So moving along, we get to Freddy Krueger, who is actually the reason why I got into horror movies in the first place. I watched Nightmare on Elm Street 3 as a kid on TV, and I was so excited, and I thought it was like the most awesome movie ever. And ever since then, I've been a big fan of Nightmare on Elm Street. So yeah, this is the NECA Part 3 Ultimate Freddy Krueger. And this figure is pretty much everything I would like Freddy to be. He has this awesome smirk, and he's got the Part 3 makeup, which I think is by far the best, and he's also got the Part 3 glove. Out of all the designs for the glove, because they changed throughout all the movies, this is by far my favorite. The blades are a little bit annoying because they're really soft and they tend to get a bit crooked. I might actually be able to replace them with like real metal blades, which would be pretty sick, but it would also be annoying if I managed to like cut myself. The only thing I wish about this figure was that he had double jointed elbows, because I would really like him to have this, because Robert Englund does this awesome thing with the glove. Like he has a very special way of like moving his hands and his fingers and his claws near his face, and you can't really get that with this figure, which is a bit unfortunate. But other than that, this figure is just great. The articulation is great for the most part. Like, you don't really need Freddy to ever do the splits or anything, and it's just a straight up beautiful figure. NECA has done a lot of other Freddy figures, but this is by far my favorite, because the other ones tend to either be based on bad designs, like the Part 5 one, or they just have some really weird expressions. So yeah, this is pretty much perfect. Like, the likeness is just spot on, and yeah, I love this figure so much. So from 1984, we move forward a few years to 1987, which is when Hellraiser came out, and this is Pinhead, originally known just as Lead Cenobite. And there have been a few Pinhead figures in the past, one being this one by NECA as well, and I don't really know how many years was in between. I believe it's like 16 years or something in between these figures, and you can just tell how toys have evolved throughout the time. I'm not completely sold on this soft goods skirt because of like how it lays. It just doesn't really want to lay all that well, but at least it's better than this rubber traffic cone that this is. And the glossy black on this one really gives that latex vibe, and the paint job is just infinitely better. And the head sculpt on this one does look better. This one looks really, really good actually for being from like 2003, I believe. But the paint work on this guy is just so much better. It also comes with the lament configuration here, a little puzzle box. And he can hold it quite nicely. Like it doesn't like click in or anything, but his hand is scooped enough so that you can kind of get away with most things unless you like shake it too much like I just did. So like it lays pretty nicely in his hand. In the future I might want some more Cenobites just to accompany Pinhead. Like I would quite like Chatterer. He's the one who kind of looks like Nemesis from Resident Evil 3, but it's not really a priority. So yeah, Pinhead. I think up next is Chucky, and this is Chucky from Bride of Chucky actually. And you can't really have Chucky without Tiffany at this point, so here's Tiffany as well. But the look I went for Chucky is the Bride of Chucky look, where he's all like slashed up and he's got these awesome scars, which I think are really, really cool. This is actually a custom head. Originally this head looked pretty much exactly the same, except this mouth was open, and I just resculpted it close because that's just how I prefer my figures. But if you've been watching Cult of Chucky, or even just the new TV show, which I highly, highly recommend, then you know, you can pretty much have as many Chuckies as you want. So this is the ultimate Bride of Chucky 2-pack by NECA, and these are just really, really, really great figures. I really hope they come back and make Glenn at some point. So about the movies, Child's Play is actually what I consider the most consistent horror movie franchise, in that I don't really think there is like a really bad movie, and that's because Don Mancini is very involved with all of them. Like Nightmare on Elm Street just ended up being terrible. Like the first one is brilliant, the second one is kinda the third one is amazing, the fourth one is kinda good-ish, the fifth one is awful, the sixth one is even worse, and then the seventh is like pretty good, and then the remake is atrocious. With Jason, pretty much all his movies are honestly pretty bad, but it's just fun to see Jason kill people. And Halloween, like I said, there are only 2 good movies. And with Texas Chainsaw Massacre, there's only 1 good movie, and that is the first original one. However, Chucky has stood the test of time because he keeps adapting. Like, it just becomes more self-aware, and it doesn't really take itself seriously at all. So it's just a wonderful franchise to watch, and I highly recommend you check out the Child's Play series. If you want to jump straight into like the goofy, then I recommend you go to Bride of Chucky immediately, because it's actually not like a bad starting point if you have some basic knowledge of Chucky. So up next is the Pennywise from the 1990 miniseries on TV. I think this miniseries is pretty terrible. I remember I got really, really bored by it, but Tim Curry stole the show as Pennywise, because when does he not steal the show? And I actually do prefer him to the more modern version of Pennywise here, but I do like the modern version of Pennywise. I think it was pretty great, so I thought, why not have him as well? But like, this is my go-to Pennywise. This is a custom head made by merging 2 of the heads together and then repainting it and stuff. And this is just straight up the stock NECA Ultimate Pennywise. This is also a NECA Ultimate Pennywise, by the way. So in short, really, really good Pennywise. A quite meh movie. This is a good Pennywise and a really good movie, and the sequel is actually pretty good too. But in the end, my heart will always be for Tim Curry. He's just one of my favorite actors ever, and I love his Pennywise so much. So next up is Candyman, and honestly, you don't really have a lot of choice here. This is the McFarlane Movie Maniacs Candyman figure, and I mean, the likeness is pretty good. I had to resculpt a lot of his face, and he's awfully pre-posed, and I had to replace the hook. But yeah, this is Candyman. Candyman 1 is a really, really good movie. I can highly recommend it. Candyman 2 it's not great, but I think it's like okay enough. Candyman 3, I don't really remember it, but I don't remember having like an awful time watching it. I might be completely wrong on that though. And then I watched the soft reboot, and I just found it incredibly, incredibly boring. So I don't really know what's going on with that franchise at the moment, but yeah, this is the Movie Maniacs Candyman, and I just had to have him because I do love the first movie a lot. So jumping ahead to kind of modern horror, this is the Djinn from Wishmaster, and And this is just a modern horror movie that I really, really fell in love with. It's got like the right amount of camp, but it's still like very intriguing, and having an evil djinn who just like twists everything you wish for is just really entertaining. This is the only figure ever made of this character, and honestly, I'm just really happy that there even is a figure of him, because the movie isn't like super well known. It does feature cameos by Tony Todd, who plays Candyman, Kane Hodder, who plays Jason, and Robert Englund, who plays Freddy Krueger. Robert is pretty much the only one who isn't just a cameo here, has an actual like sort of biggish role in the movie, but the other two are just cameos. But yeah, Wishmaster, look it up, it's really, really good. So last but not least is Sam from Trick or Treat. So Trick or Treat is an anthology movie where it just has a bunch of short stories where like the overlapping narrative is that Sam can be seen in like the background, or he straight up influences the plot a little bit. So Sam is supposed to be like the guardian of Halloween, sort of like Santa Claus and Christmas, I guess. It's just a really fun idea for a character, and I really love how cute he is. If you haven't seen the movie, then I won't spoil it, but he does look really cool without this burlap sack as well. So this is the ultimate Sam figure by NECA. And they actually made a Sam figure like years before this one, but it was also a pre-post mess because it was like old school NECA. Yeah, this figure is just infinitely better. For years I was contemplating buying that old figure just to give him more articulation, but it was really, really expensive, so I'm super happy that they decided to make a new one. So yeah, that's my little horror movie figure collection, and I hope you enjoyed this kind of different video, but Halloween is upon us, and I've been a massive fan of horror movies since I was like 11, so these guys mean quite a lot to me. So yeah, thank you for watching, and happy Halloween!
This is my boomstick!
Make your wishes.
The only thing to fear is fear himself.
We have such sights to show you.
I met this 6-year-old child with this blank, pale, emotionless face and the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes.
Be my victim.
I know your secret, your dirty little secret. I'll drive you crazy and I'll kill you all. I'm every nightmare you ever had. I am your worst dream come true. I'm everything you ever were afraid of.
A, B, C, D, E, F.
I am Chucky, the killer dog, and I dig it!
Where's your self-respect?